Hello friends, welcome back to another video. It's Grapha, and today what we have is basically the Flaming Echo. So we finally gotten through it, the 7 days. I waited an extra day just because some people were a bit behind, but most of everyone now should have their 7 days. There's 6 options of all the espers that they have to choose from. Oh, I'm dying. And I have a Bulbasaur. But anyway, so I just wanted to, this is just a tier list, okay? This is just a tier list of what I think are what you should prioritize, basically. What you should prioritize picking for the Flaming Echo, and I've dumbed it down because there are so many people who are just asking, oh, what do I pick? What do I do? Is Leora better than Gaius, or is Ife even worth anything? Like, there's just too many questions. In Reddit, in Dislyte general chat, in the different Discords, it's just busy, okay? So I decided to make a very simple version that is gonna be not comprehensive. So this is not gonna be like the end-all be-all guide, and you should take this with a grain of salt. This is all just my opinion, and I've catered this towards new players, okay? Because a lot of these new players don't really know what to do. So I'm only gonna be picking between R0 and R2. If you are at the stage where you can consistently get different R4 or R6 espers, you have an idea already of what to pick. And so yeah, with that said, here is the tier list. Now, I've sectioned these into the different possible things. Now, a lot of these espers, I didn't even bother with the different resonances. Again, just R0 and R2. And so, yeah, so S plus is the highest priority. If you don't have these espers or these resonances and you have the chance to get them, I immediately suggest that you pick these, and I will elaborate why later on. S is good and flexible everywhere, which means that they're going to be pretty good, pretty solid. Like, in different contents, they might not even be replaceable. So, for example, I have Tricky here. You won't be able to replace him in content where you do need him. So that's also another reason why I put them in S. But good and flexible just means that they're going to be useful in every single content somehow, some way. You can't go wrong with them, basically. For A is the solid options. Now, these options are the ones where they're going to be nice to have. They're replaceable sometimes, but when you have them, they're going to be really, really good. And these are the type of espers or resonances that you're going to say, oh, I wish I had these in these quote-unquote different content or different metas. And for B, these are the niche. These are the specific units. They're good, okay? You can summon for them. They're good enough to warrant wasting your Flaming Echo summon on them, but they're very niche. They're going to be very specific espers, and you have to use them in certain content only, or they might not even be that good at the end of the day. And F is just don't waste on these. These are bad summons to waste on. Just don't use them at all. So F is pretty self-explanatory. A few that I'm going to say are going to be notable is Ashley is not useful. Biandina is useful in some, but her resonance and just her in general is not worth summoning, considering there are definitely better options. Elaine, you got her for free, and honestly, she's not really that good anyway. And the one place that she is really, really good at is Fafnir, and the future unit Prometheus, I think, or Mateo, he's gonna be good at it anyway, so I don't think he's worth. Elliot, don't summon for him. Like, do you even know what his R2 does? I didn't even know what his R2 did. So I'm just speedrunning through the F, by the way, because it's F. Yeah, he just taunts you, and then if you taunt, he'll get cooldown up on that unit, but then they're taunted, so the cooldown up doesn't matter because they're only going to use their S1 anyway. So Elliot R2, really bad. Hyde, he just gains the subsequent waves, but then like he's not really good because you really only use him at some levels of point war, maybe some levels of knockout, but he's not that good. He's fallen off. Ife, don't bother. Narmer, don't bother summoning on him. Narmer's like an okay, like he has a place somewhere on the burning pillar, and like there are people that use R6 Narmer to crazy extents, but not worth to summon. Liling as well, not worth to summon. Leora's a good unit, but she just gets crit rate down that can't miss, that's not useful. Ophelia, she just gains extra shield, not that useful. Tangshen, R0, not that useful. TA silences on her S2, I believe, not that useful. Okay, moving on to B. So we're going up the tier list. I'm gonna spend a bit more time as we go up. So B, Abigail, when she uses her S2, which is the shield, she will remove all buffs on her, all debuffs on herself, which is really decent. But you know, she's perfectly fine at R0. Don't really need to bother. Zhang by himself is actually a pretty okay unit, but the fact that he just levels the HP is not that good. Elaine just does a bit more damage. She ignores defense more, not that good. Elliot, he's okay if you don't have him, but I've never used him, and he's just very, very niche, so I honestly wouldn't want to summon on him. Hyde is a pretty good unit. He's really good. He's like a noob crusher in a sense, but once you get to a certain point, Hyde is pretty much easy to deal with, and at the upper levels of Point War, he's almost non-existent anymore. So he's just really annoying at the lower level of Point War. I wouldn't recommend him, honestly. Lewis, he just does a lot of single target damage, and honestly, single target damage in this current place in the meta is not really that good if he doesn't have any other sort of utility, and Lewis doesn't really have that, so both his R0 and his R2, which dispels buffs on the target, it's not really that good. Ollie provides 2 turns of the invincibility and the recovery, which is okay, but I don't think it's worth the summon. Ophelia summons the same problem as Lewis, where it's just single target damage. It's not really that good. Tangshin at R2 is actually pretty decent because those pursuit attacks is actually really, really good, and there are some people that actually use him at the higher levels of Point War, or even in just the, not, what is that pillar? The wind pillar, but it's not that good. So I put him at niche. TA is at R0 with the speed lead, but she's not really that good. Even at Point War, she's okay, but she kind of gets outshined sometimes. She might get outshined by Ollie or even Izanagi at some cases. So she's okay to summon, but she's just there for the Point War, for the speed lead and for that S3 once. She's not really that good as a controller. Tricky, he just provides some speed down on his revolver, but I don't think that this is that useful because, for example, you have Long Mian that can provide that speed down. You can have Pritzker that also provides speed down at R6, so I don't think that this is really all worth the summon, since there are 4-star units that can actually do that speed down more effectively. Zora's okay, but like, she just does too much AoE damage and not enough like single target damage is her problem, and she doesn't really like scale. Like, there aren't really that many content where you want to have AoE damage like en masse. There's only like Sonic Rift, and that's pretty much it. Like, she's also good at Shadowfire, but once you level up through Shadowfire, you can just use Jiangman, or even like at the higher levels you just use Chloe R6, so not that good. And then she just has defense break, which is again not that good. All right, now we get to the A. So these are the solid options. These are where I start to consider heavily choosing between this. So if you have A to S plus, I would definitely consider just going for A to S plus, unless you have specific reasons why you would want for B or for niche tiers. So okay, so at the solid options, we start with Brewster. Brewster is really, really good. He's a solid unit, has a defense break, and he has these follow-up attacks, which are really, really solid. He gets better at R2, but if you don't have him, he's a really good unit, especially if you're trying to speedrun, let's say APEP, for example. So yeah, solid option. Next up is Tang Zi at R2. He's really, really good. He is a menace in PvP R2 because he starts swapping health instead of just like bumping up your units to match the health. So because the swapping health is really, really good, it's like this true damage that doesn't even count as true damage. So he's really, really good at PvP, and even some instances of the Burning Pillar, he's really, really good. I like him. He's also good at Countess Sonica. He's really, really good. I just like him. Next up is Clara. Clara at R2 is actually really solid because she provides that 2-turn instead of 1-turn immunity, which means she is now a viable option for just being a solid immunity unit if you just need that immunity, which makes her really good in APEP, and that's really where she shines the most. I have more thoughts on Clara later, but her R2 is really, really solid. That's all I have to say. Next up is Embla. Embla is also a really, really solid unit at R0. It's very, very nice to have her. She provides so much damage over a long period of time. In terms of like the longest period of times, like if you were to scale like a boss that, let's say, it took like 10 minutes to finish, Embla, without a doubt in my mind, does the most damage for a single Esper, because those corrupted seeds, they can just keep on repopping and repopping. I think she has the most damage overall when it comes to like long fights. If the fight is really, really long, she's really, really good. Next up is Ethan. Ethan, I honestly don't have him, but from what I've seen, he deserves the A option because he provides a lot in his kit. Now, this lots in his kit is very confusing, but in the right scenarios is really, really good, especially because he has this magic tune, which is very, very unique, and the panic gaze, which is actually really, really powerful in certain different contents, especially in something like Infinity Tower or Temporal Tower. He's really, really good. And at R2, I would say that at R2, everyone went crazy on him at R2 because he has that magic tune and gives everyone speed. But personally, I don't think that that speed is all that worth it compared to like some other units, right? If you go to the S and S+, you cannot compare Ethan's R2 to these units S and S plus. So that's why I put him at A. This is just my opinion. At the end of the day, if there are any Ethan lovers out there, this is just my opinion. Please don't kill me. Next up is Gabrielle. Now at Gabrielle, she at R2 is actually really, really good because she now has this speed multiplier for her S2. And it's really, really insane because she does so much damage. And a lot of the reason why she's really, really good is because she has this immunity for 3 turns and she provides a lot of damage and she provides a lot of utility for your team. So she's just a really, really solid option. But I wouldn't recommend getting her at R2 just because the damage is replaceable, basically, in my opinion. Like, you can go without her, without that damage, because she will do her job even if she's not at R2, in my opinion. Next up is Gaius at R2. This is when he starts to become more of a supportive Esper, because when he is in his God King, he will give crit rate plus 20% to everyone, and then if he's just at his normal form, he will give accuracy plus 20% to everyone, which is really, really nice because this allows you to build your team a lot better. For example, in Chronos, if you have him as your lead unit when he's nuking the waves, he will give everyone else plus crit rate plus 20, which allows you to max your stats in other ways. So it's a really nice support and solid option. But Gaius, personally, he's just there for the damage and he's not really there for like the supportive option, so I wouldn't really recommend getting him at R2. Nonetheless, he's a solid Esper to pick. Next up is Intisar. Intisar is a really, really good Esper in my opinion because she just has a lot of coverage with that debuff extension, which is really unique to her, and she does a ton of damage on her S3 because on her S3 it does scale to max HP of the boss or of the different units, so she just really does a lot of damage in my opinion. And then she also has this miss rate up, which is very unique. It's not all that useful, but it's very unique. And next up is Ollie. Ollie is honestly really, really good. He would be an S tier in my opinion, but I just don't think he cuts the cake because he provides that coverage for your team, and he's really, really good in Chronos. But you don't really see him in other different content because he just has that single target damage and that single target like save a life, but it doesn't really go past there. So that's why I put him at A. I almost contemplated putting him at S, but I think I had to bump him down to A, just for my opinion only. Next up is Sienna at S2. What? Oh my god, I'm mixing up S2 and R2 so much, sorry. But at R2, she will provide the 3 turns of attack up and speed up, which is really, really nice because Sienna is just really, really good at PvE content, and that extra 3 turns matters a lot in like the different PvE content when you're trying to stretch out damage numbers or you're trying to stretch out like how long you can keep the buff. It's really, really solid. And lastly but not least is Yun Chuan. Honestly, Yun Chuan is like my personal favorite. Like, I think he's my favorite Esper, and this is why I placed him so high. He doesn't really make S because he's not good and flexible everywhere. Like in some content at R0, he's not really that good, but he has a lot built into his kit, and he has this speed up for your team and speed down on the enemy team. Those differentials in speed can make a difference, and he does have solid damage even at A tier. Now, before we get into S tier, I just want to preface this that this is all just my opinion, right? But what I will say is that a lot of players have a tendency to lean to the older units because the older units are very solid and they're very like, you know, they're just gonna be good, right? Like, you can't go wrong with, let's say, a Gabrielle or like a Clara or something like that. So maybe my opinions on like the newer Espers like Changqi and Embla and Ethan are just gonna be like my opinion. But if you were a new player and you didn't really care about like, oh yeah, Gaius or Embla or like or Gabrielle, those are the older units. Okay, not Embla, but those are the old units, because like everyone has a tendency to just favor the old units, but in my opinion, the new units that have been released really keep up, and I just want to give them the place that they are due, especially for newer players who I think will just listen to like the older players realize that, oh yeah, it's Gabrielle, it's Ahmed or whatever. I think that the new Espers have a place and are really, really good, and even though I don't have a bunch of them, I think they deserve like solid option at best, even if, you know, maybe people prefer Hyde or something, or maybe people prefer like Ophelia or something. I don't know. This is all just my opinion. Anyway, moving on. S. So when it comes to Ahmed is irreplaceable because he is the only unit in the game that can recover max HP cap reduction, and aside from that, he has the cooldown reduction on his S3 and the attack buff on his what is this called? The harmonic songs, I think, or whatever. What are these called? I need to know. Frick. I need to know. Right, so the warm harmonics, what the frick? The supporting song, sorry. These give +4 on the base attack, and those are really, really solid. And even at R2, in my opinion, this R2 is really, really strong because it starts giving +2 speed per supporting song. And at max 15 stacks, that means units can get +30 speed. And this is really, really good and content that will allow you to push. So example is in for the tanky meta right now. The tanky meta right now will allow you to get like a lot of supporting song stacks on all of your units, and that plus speed will make a difference, will make a huge difference, and in my opinion, it deserves S. Now, next up is Ashley. In my opinion, Ashley is really, really solid because she's the only DPS Esper at R0 that can give your whole team attack up. Now, there are some units that can give themselves attack up, or there are some units, like for example, Intisar at R6 that will give your whole team attack up. But at R0, Ashley is the only DPS Esper that can give attack up, which makes her really, really valuable because if you're cutting corners on space, for example, in terms of units, you can run 2 support units and then like 3 DPS units, and then your Ashley will be the lead, and then she will give like the attack up to everyone. It just matters a lot for point war. It just matters a lot for like making your team save space. And Ashley has a lot of utility when it comes to her Rainbow Bridge, when it comes to her speed down or attack down and stun. She's just really, really good overall, and she deserves S. You have to have 1 copy of her, in my opinion. She's just that good. Next up is Brewster. Now, Brewster at R2, he's actually really, really interesting because he's only been making waves lately at the higher levels of point war or PvP in general, just because he has those 3 stacks of reload, which allows him to push his AP even at the beginning of the game, because when he has those 3 stacks of reload at the beginning of the game, your fastest units, your support units can attack, he will assist, and then he will boost his own AP, which makes him so valuable because you can start building him differently. You can start building him really, really slow and just hit like a truck, because he will still get his turn because he's pushing his own AP at R2, which is really, really nice. And because he has that defense break, he's just a solid unit overall. I wish I had him at R2. I don't even have him at R0. I'm stumbling on my words. Help me, Lord. Let's finish this video. Woo! Next up is Embla at R2. Now, Embla at R2, she starts doing these corrupted seed bursts that will affect the other enemies when they die, because at R0 she will only affect that 1 unit and then spread the corrupted seed, but at R2 she will spread the corrupted seed and also do damage to those units that got the corrupted seed, which is really, really important. And if you guys have seen like a previous video of Daddy Free to Play or like some other YouTuber, the chain explosions on the corrupted seed will allow you to basically like one-shot whole teams if the setup is right, because the corrupted seeds will just keep on exploding on different units, and it will just nuke an entire team. So she's really, really good. Her damage numbers are insane. R2 Embla, absolutely broken. Next up is Gabrielle. Now, Gabrielle at R0, and honestly, okay, don't summon for her. If you guys watch this video before the time is up, please don't summon for her in the Flaming Echo, in my opinion, because if you guys don't know, right now she's actually available as a event Esper for Wish Stones. So if you guys have the Wish Stones and you have better options, in my opinion, in the Flaming Echo, don't summon for her. Summon for like one of these S+ units. But if you don't have her and you don't have the Wish Stones and you won't be able to get the resources, okay, fine, summon for her in the Flaming Echo. But if you can help not to, summon for her in the Wish Stones instead, and then get her as and get someone else in the Flaming Echo if you have better options. That's just my opinion. But the Flaming Echo does last for another 30 days, so you might want to wait until the next update to decide for sure. But anyway, Gabrielle, really, really solid. The defense up and the immunity is just super, super solid. And the attack down all in one skill on her S3. It just makes it so that your team has so much survivability. And then she has the very guaranteed defense break on her S2 because it's multi-hit. And then she just does a lot of damage as well. Even her S1 at R0, it does a decent amount of damage, and those multi-hits, just very, very good, very, very solid. It allows you to build her on Tyranny of Zeus. It allows you to build her really, really fast. Just lots of different builds that you can build on her. Wow, build on her. And yeah, it's really, really good. Next up is Intisar at R2. Now, this is just my opinion, but Intisar at R2 is really, really strong because she follows up. If she's not in stealth, when she does her S1, she will go into her S3, pursuit into her S3, and that just leaves her with having so much damage over the course of a battle. And that stealth and that damage just really, really solid overall. And she does do max HP scaling on her damage. So I believe she deserves S at R2. She does have a ton of single target and AoE damage, so I do believe that she's this good. Maybe I'm wrong though, but this is just my opinion from how broken she is that I've seen of her. Next up is Leora. Now Leora at R0 she's good enough to have one copy of her because she provides a lot of like buffs and debuffs. She's one of the only units to provide crit rate down, which I believe is a really good solid debuff, especially with the advent of like the Withering Omen. There's going to be different boss content where crit rate down is such a good debuff to have. She also provides lots of damage, and she provides that Seer and AP reduce on her S1. She just has lots of damage, in my opinion, and lots of buffs and debuffs, like the standoff, the invincibility. She's just really solid, in my opinion. Just really solid overall. I like her a lot, and I will probably summon for her in my own Flaming Echo because, yeah, she's just really good. I'm holding off for now, but I believe that she's really good. Next up is Sienna. Sienna is the queen of PvE, but even in PvP, if you run her fast enough, you can just lead with her and have that stun on the enemy team, and that's really good. She got buffed recently, or like a few months ago, and now she's just overall really consistent. She provides lots of damage, not damage, like she provides a lot of utility for her team. The stun, the buffs, the AP pushing, all really good. And if you're a PvE nut, you will use her in like different contents, like for example the different Desolate Lands, or even just the different Sentinel Hunt bosses. She's really good. And lastly for S, it's Tricky. Now, I contemplated Tricky, and Tricky is the only one that's not gonna fit the good and flexible everywhere, but he's also irreplaceable. Similar to Ahmed, in the content that you will use him, he is nigh irreplaceable. Just because he is the only unit that has that cleanse, petrify the unit, basically. If they cleanse, you petrify them and do damage. He's the only unit that can do that. And in different content, like for example in different Infinity Tower levels, he is such a godsend because they will purify buffs constantly. For example, there's like one stage that will purify buffs constantly, and Tricky will absolutely rock their world. So in my opinion, Tricky deserves S. He is irreplaceable when you need him. As a stunner, as a controller, he's not that good, but where you need him, he's just irreplaceable. Absolutely godsend. Now, lastly, S+. My voice is dying. I have been in Japan, and I have not been able to record lately. I took a haircut. I did a lot of things. Oh my god. I got Blue Lock. I got a chapter of Blue Lock. Anyway, stalling. Back to the tier list video. S+. Highest priority, if you see them in your Flaming Echo and you do not have them, summon for them immediately. In my opinion, this is my opinion, but do summon for them. They're so good. Just get them. But okay, I'm going to explain why. First off is Abigail. Abigail, she provides a lot of buffs, and she provides a lot of things that are just super solid, especially if you're a new mid-game player. New or mid-game player. She has the AP push with the absorb, with the attack up. That's just so good. And it's a revive, which means if you mess up in like certain content like Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower, and Point War, in certain boss content, in like story maybe, you can revive a unit and continue the run. And that is really good on its own. Next up is her S2, which is absolutely broken. Her S2 is, in my opinion, like one of the most broken skills because it provides a shield that also gives defense and recovery. So it's recovery for herself. So it's a shield that they have to get through and provides defense up, which makes the team tankier. And then, some people don't know this, but if you didn't know, her shield actually scales off of lost HP. So if your unit is really low, they will gain even more shield, which means like some people who don't know that will try to focus down the unit that lost the most HP because they're trying to get the kill. But what they don't know is that they will actually gain a bigger shield because of this, which is, in my opinion, really broken. And lastly, on her S1, she does have this sleep. Now it's really nice because it has that utility to just be able to stun one unit, just take them out of the game. Just if your Abigail's on cooldown, you can, and she's not doing anything, you can just say, hey, to another enemy unit, you're not gonna do anything either. It's really, really good. And she has the HP lead, which is insane. Too much packed into one kit. Abigail must priority summon. Next up is Clara. Now, a lot of people are gonna hate Clara, but I agree with Daddy Free to Play on this. And I think my best reasoning for this, that why Clara is so broken, is that if you're a new player or a mid-game player, right? You do not have the luxury to have both like an AP pusher and a healer like separately. You can now have both of that mixed into one. And Clara is really, really good because in the content where you will need like to push, like for example in Chronos, if you need to push those speeds or push that healing and you can't use different supports for it, you can just use Clara and she will provide that utility for you. All in one Esper. This matters a lot because like in the lower stages of the game, you're gonna be getting outsped, you're gonna be losing in terms of like value, you're gonna run out of resources, your Espers are gonna die. Clara will provide all of that AP push, immunity, the overhealth shield, the healing, all in one kit, and it's really, really valuable for a new player because as a new player, you don't have those stats yet. Your relics are not up to par, and Clara just is insanely powerful. I remember Clara's my first natural 5-star that I got, and she was insane because I could push content that other people couldn't push simply because I had a Clara. She is that good. She falls off a bit towards the later end of the game, in my opinion, but she's good enough just because she has that AP push and healing. So, in my opinion, Clara is really, really good, and if you're a new player or mid-game player, I highly suggest getting her. She is good and you will not regret using her at all. That is just my opinion. Some people will bump her down to S or even just A, but she deserves S+ in my opinion. That is my reasoning. Next up is Gaius. I don't think we need to talk about Gaius. Gaius is good. The full crit rate on God King mode means that you can just build him for super damage, and his multipliers are really strong because he has super damage and he can do AoE damage, or he can do single target damage, but the single target damage is a bit lackluster, but it's still really, really good. He has the Seer, he has the stun, he has the buff blocker, he does it all. Gaius is broken. Summon for him if you don't have him, please. And lastly, my opinion only, my maybe hottest take is R2 Yunchuan. R2 Yunchuan is the biggest gap from an R0 to an R2 Esper, in my opinion, because he turns all of your Espers into Espers that can Seer, that can hit through like defenses because he has like ignored defense, and steal buffs. All of your Espers can do that. They can do damage now because of the follow-up. They just do he just does tons of damage. And in my opinion, that is just so worth it. Honestly, if I had an R2 Yunchuan at like the beginning if you guys had an R2 Yunchuan at the beginning of the game, if you had that, you would just see how broken he is. Like obviously, if you're a late game player, you won't use him everywhere just because you're biased towards the older units, or just because you just prefer like not to use him. But if you're a new player and you can get R2 Yunchuan, you will see how absolutely broken he is, from the Seer to the miss rate up to the defense, ignore defense, to the everyone being able to steal buffs. It's just absolutely broken in my opinion, and that's why I put him at S+. If you get him at R2, you will absolutely not regret it, but this is all just my opinion. I think he deserves S+, on par with like these R0 units in my opinion. But that is it for the freaking tier list video for the Flaming Echo. If you guys just saw the video and just left, if you guys just saw the tier list and left, perfectly fine. This is like a 30-minute video, but I wanted to make this because there are too many people asking, too many people wondering what the thing is, and this is just a simplified version. Take this all with a grain of salt. This is just my opinion. If you guys prefer a different unit for their aesthetic, or you find them cool, or you have priorities on different content, and you, for example, want, let's say, if you want like TA because you want PvP, go for it. Absolutely go for it. This is all just my opinion. And with that said, I will end the tier list video. What do you guys think? If you guys think I'm completely delusional, comment down below, because I might just be. I got a haircut. I've lost all my hair, so maybe I'm not thinking that straight anymore. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, get out of here. I don't know why I always say that, but bye-bye.